All right, we want to take you live now to Toronto, Nova Scotia. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, giving a formal apology to descendants and relatives of the men of Canada's 1st Black Battalion. Let's listen in.
Such an important event, not just in Black history, but in Canadian history. I want to thank Lieutenant Governor LeBlanc, Deputy Premier McMaster, and Mayor Mills for being with us. Thank you to Minister Anand and Minister Sajjan for all the work you've done to make today happen. And thank you to our Black Caucus and Nova Scotia Caucus members. But none of us would be here today without the important work of the descendants of No. 2 Construction Battalion, the members of the National Apology Advisory Committee, many people from the African Nova Scotian community and members of the Black community across Canada, Russell Gross and the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia, and Lieutenant Colonel Barry Pitcher from the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you all. You persevered and kept the memory of Canada's 1st and only Black Battalion alive, No. 2 Construction Battalion. We are here to accept responsibility for mistakes of the past and to pledge ourselves to working every day to build a better future. Aujourd'hui,
today,
c'est une journée historique.
It's a historical moment. I'm very happy to see that these descendants and so many people here present today.
Among the most selfless things a person can do is stand up and volunteer to fight for their country, to risk your life, to defend your values and your loved ones is an act of extraordinary bravery, of honor, of sacrifice, of loyalty. When the First World War broke out in Europe and Canada joined the fight, men from across the country flocked to enlist. Among those brave volunteers were hundreds of young Black men, eager to serve, who loved Canada and were ready to take up arms to defend king and country. They were willing and able patriots who wanted to serve. Des centaines de jeunes hommes venant des
hundreds of young men from Black communities to protect freedom. They wanted to fight against tyranny and oppression. And most volunteers from Black communities were refused the honor to serve the country.
In repeated acts of discrimination and racism, almost every single Black volunteer was turned away and denied the honor of serving their country. In one instance, a group of 50 Black volunteers journeyed from Sydney to New Glasgow by train and waited all day at the recruiting office only to be told that this was a white man's war. Those recruiters did not see men willing to fight for our collective freedom. They only saw the color of their skin. Back then, there were unwritten laws of segregation, but some were more explicit. In 1910, when the Naval Service of Canada was founded, its recruitment practices excluded non-white members. And while there was no official policy for the Canadian Expeditionary Forces, it was left up to commanding officers who repeatedly turned Black volunteers away. These shameful, discriminatory practices did not go unnoticed by the public. Letters came from across the country demanding to know why black men could not enlist. In 1915, George Morton from Hamilton, wrote the Minister of Militia and Defense to speak out on behalf of his fellow black citizens. I quote, "They think they should be permitted, in common with other peoples, to perform their part and do their share in this great conflict." He stated that black men wanted to work out their own destiny and were anxious to serve in this critical crisis in the country's history. What more devotion to country could we have asked for? And yet, senior military leadership at the time continued to turn a deaf ear. How quickly the military leadership of the day had forgotten the history of black soldiers. For over a century, black soldiers had sacrificed so much to serve this place they called home. Durant la guerre de 1812,
during the war of 1812, they defended Upper Canada. In 1859, William Edward Hall, the son of former slave, was one of the first Canadians to receive the Victoria Cross for his bravery.
In 1861, the Victoria Rifle Pioneers Corps became the first authorized military force in Western Canada and was comprised entirely of black men who had come to British Columbia to escape racial persecution down south. By the time of the First World War, Canada already had a long history of loyal black military service. But in 1916, a major general took it upon himself to write a memo that disparaged the loyalty and combat capabilities of black men. This is what systemic racism and anti-black hate does. It suppresses the truth. It tries to rewrite history under false narratives. It buries the bravery, humanity, and common cause we share. But human nature shows us again and again that people will always find a way to stand up and demand their dignity. And the black men who wanted to serve never gave up. Le racisme systémique et la haine envers les communautés noires
racism and hate against the black
Mais la nature humaine nous a
hide
montré plusieurs fois
truth.
que les
Human
gens
nature
trouveront
proves
toujours le moyen de se lever
that people
et de
will
réclamer
always
leur
find ways to
dignité.
rise and
See,
reclaim
2
their
years after
dignity.
the war began, black men were finally permitted to form their own battalion, Number 2 Construction Battalion, Canada's first and only black battalion. While many members were from around here in Nova Scotia, black men and boys traveled from across the country to enlist. 2 sons of the famous cowboy John Ware, Arthur and William, came all the way from the family's Calgary homestead. Environ 600 patriotes de tout le pays sont venus
Patriots
ici
from throughout the
Truro
country
pour
came here to
recevoir un
Truro
entraînement.
to receive
Ils
their
ont
training.
fièrement revêtu l'uniforme du corps expéditionnaire
They were proud
canadien
to wear
après 2
their
ans de refus.
uniforms after 2 years
Ils
of
n'ont jamais
training.
eu les mêmes possibilités, ni le
They
même
would never
soutien
offer
que
the
leurs
same
homologues
possibilities.
When these black men had answered the call of duty, they had dreamt of fighting on the front lines. But instead, they were deployed to Europe as a labor unit. They had to sail on a separate ship and were sent to the Jura Mountains of southeastern France, where they joined the Canadian Forestry Corps. They did grueling work, and their contributions were invaluable to the war effort. The lumber they cut lined the trenches on the front lines, became railway ties, and was even used in aircraft. Thanks to their faithful and disciplined work, the mills produced double the lumber of other comparable units. But still, they had to live in segregated camps and without proper medical care, rations, or equipment. 23 members of the battalion died in Europe, their lives lost while serving their country. And when the war was over and the battalion came home, the living were never given the hero's welcome they deserved. À leur retour, les membres
when
du
they
deuxième
came back,
bataillon de
the
construction
members of
jamais
the
reçu
number
l'accueil
2
en héros
construction battalion never received their hero welcome.
In the poem we just heard, Black Soldier's Lament by Captain George Borden, the opening lines are haunting. The bugle called, and forth we went, to serve the crown, our backs far bent, and build whate'er that must be done, but ne'er to fire an angry gun. No heroes we, nay, not one. That last line. How could they not be seen as heroes? As a country, we failed to recognize their contributions for what they were. Their back-breaking work, their sacrifice, their very willingness to put their country before their self. The Great War was won at the hands of every soul that served. We owe these men, these brave black men, so much. Je suis ici aujourd'hui
I'm here today
afin d'offrir les excuses du
to
gouvernement du
offer
Canada
the excuses of the government of Canada
dont ces
to these
patriotes
people,
ont été traités. I am
the
here
way
today
these
to
patriots
offer
were
the government
treated.
of Canada's official apology for the appalling way these patriots were treated. For the overt racism of turning black volunteers away when they offered to sacrifice their lives for all, we are sorry. For not letting black service members fight alongside their white compatriots, for denying members of No. 2 Construction Battalion the care and support they deserved, we are sorry. For failing to honor and commemorate the contributions of the members of No. 2 Construction Battalion and their descendants, for the blatant anti-black hate and systemic racism that denied these men dignity in life and in death, we are sorry. On ne peut pas changer le passé, mais on doit tous saisir les occasions d'apprendre de nos erreurs. Malheureusement,
Inaudible. Unfortunately, we know that too many people, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, are still exposed to racism, including racism to black people.
All service members in the Canadian Armed Forces is upheld. Where everyone is welcome, where everyone can rise through the ranks, where everyone has opportunities to distinguish themselves. We cannot and we will not ever let what happened to No. 2 Construction Battalion happen again in ways large or small. And we cannot let the service of any member of our forces ever be overlooked or forgotten. Today, very little would be known of the battalion's legacy if it weren't for the efforts of their steadfast descendants, relentless historians, and Black leaders. I want to, again, thank Russell Gross and all of those at the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia for their work to research and preserve the memory of No. 2 Construction Battalion. I also want to particularly thank former Member of Parliament for Halifax West, Gordon Earl, for his dedication to commemorating the battalion. And there are two other names that need mention, names who are no longer with us. First, Senator Calvin Ruck, who devoted himself to documenting Canada's Black military history and sharing the stories of the members of No. 2, including by publishing a book on the men. And Captain George Borden, who was a descendant of serving members and served in the military himself. Captain Borden was a ceaseless advocate of the battalion who also wrote that beautiful poem we heard earlier. I also want to acknowledge among all the various descendants and family members, Audrey Paris, who is the oldest direct descendant. Her father, Sheldon Paris, served in No. 2. Audrey can't be here with us today, but I know is watching from Toronto. Thank you. Over the past few decades, efforts have been made to recognize the battalion, including exhibitions, publications, Parks Canada events, and a stamp. Well, today, we're announcing that next year, during Black History Month, the Royal Canadian Mint will release a pure silver collector coin honoring No. 2 Construction Battalion, which will allow Canadians, no matter where they live, to be part of remembering this extraordinary legacy. L'année prochaine, pendant le mois de l'histoire des Noirs, la monnaie royale canadienne va émettre une pièce de collection en argent pur
Mint Canada will issue a pure silver coin to honor No. 2 Construction Battalion to celebrate their heritage. Today, I hope that all Canadians will do some research in our history, non-written and not told. There are stories like histories of the 2nd Battalion and our history.
All members of the Canadian Armed Forces fight under the same flag. Our flag may have changed since the First World War, but what we stand for never has. Freedom, peace, justice, fairness, and hope. This is the promise of Canada. And while we still have work to do, this should always be what we fight for at home and around the world. To the memory of these Black soldiers, we would like to say, today we see you and we honor you. And to their descendants, we hope you see yourselves as you are, heirs to the memory of true Canadian heroes. There's paperwork.